She said this evening, and we're coming at you hot on a Tuesday night. It's the 12th on a Tuesday night, and we apologize. We usually say Thursday, but again, schedules are crazy. I'm going to be traveling. Brooke's had a wild week. Mandy's had a wild week. Frankie has been in the weeds. I know what she's been doing. She's been building websites. Like we don't even let her leave her house. Like I don't know the last time she's seen the sun.
I've had my groceries delivered the last 2 days because I have not left.
Yeah, we're Frankie's just it's sweatshop. It's just website. So I mean, God bless everyone for all the hard work they're doing, and we're working hard. And it's Tuesday instead of Thursday, but you know what? We're hoping that everyone just keeps tuning in all week long on this episode. This is a big one. I'm actually glad we're coming in today because there's so much going on in the world, like always. But I'm fired up with our title tonight. We're talking. For me, it's a love letter or not so in love letter with Donald Trump, and what he posted recently about the vaccines that we've been talking about. And basically, I'm kind of sick of him being rah about him. I mean, the whole world's been saying that. He basically came out again and responded to Biden, and in so many words said, I got it done quicker, and it's great, and we can't wait to cure cancer with more vaccines, more vaccines, more vaccines, more vaccines. So, the Q world can pipe in and say what they want to say, that there's something going on. I mean, so here's the direct quote. And he put this on Truth, but he said, quote, "The pandemic no longer controls our lives. The vaccines that saved us from COVID are now being used to help beat cancer, turning setback into comeback. You're welcome, Joe. 9-month approval time versus 12 years that it would have taken you." So, I mean, I'll just leave that there. That's just like the mic drop. Everyone has a different reaction to it, and I respect everyone's reaction. I still think Trump is the best pick, obviously, and I still want him to be the next president, obviously. But I also want him to pull his head out of his ass and stop saying this nonsense. And if it wasn't him that tweeted it, whoever tweeted it should be fired. Come on, Trump, fire him then. Whoever's advising his campaign needs to be really strongly criticized. And if we can't call out our leaders, like you can respect someone 99% of the time, but that 1% of the time, if they make a misstep, they say something wrong, call them out. So I'm a big fan of we should be holding these guys that are running for office or trying to be in office and that are in office, call them out every time they make a misstep. So I'm gonna say bullshit on Donald Trump and let you guys take the floor. What do you all feel about this?
I second that. I'm totally shocked because I know you had messaged that earlier today, like, oh yeah, this is kind of what came out, and it's been a crazy week. Okay, let's just put it there. I think who's ever advising him, he needs to fire. I have a medical background, 20 years, and then I have the criminal justice on the master's component side. And any vaccine does not get approved in the amount of time. And Andrea knows probably most, maybe more, actually Mandy and Andrea and Frankie, all three of you guys probably know more collectively together on all the different things that have been going on with the vaccines, especially with Tom's fights and everything that he's done. I'm going to say, Mr. Former president, future president, no, that tweet needs to come down, my dear. The call to action is no. And if you need the data, I'm sure Frankie, Amanda, Andrea can supply you data that's talking about the increase in cancer, the increase. Just look at the media. Look at who's ever, people are just falling over dead all the time. No, that's not normal. The myocarditis. And then you have a number of states, I think it's up to 17 states now, where they actually banned it, putting it into the schools on kids. So I'm not very happy to hear that. I still think he's the man for the job, but I'm not in agreement with that. And I'm going to pass the baton to whoever else wants it.
Well, I will say, I will also second everything that you said, Andrea, and everything that you said, Brooke. I I think it's very critical, especially with leadership roles, that we do voice in when corrections need to be made. We're taught very clearly that iron sharpens iron. And if we don't correct our leaders when in this position of leadership, we cannot move forward. We have to also be a part of that voice to help guide them. This is only one person. Trump is not a savior. I'm tired of so many people coming out and saying Trump is a savior. A lot of times it is from the left that they're claiming that we claim that he is a savior, and he's not. He's a human being just like you and me. But he also has this circle of influence, some of them great, some of them not so great, that are putting the wrong things into his ears, whatever the reason may be. If they have infiltrated the circle, if they are people that are being paid off by Pfizer, whoever it is. But we need to hold our leaders accountable. And this isn't just Trump, this is the entire Republican Party. And right now I feel we don't even have a Republican Party. It's Democrats and rhinos, essentially, not even Republicans, but rhinos at this point, just against not even we the people on the right, but also the people on the left. It's the people versus the elites, the globalists, the career politicians. They all need to be held accountable, regardless of what side you were on. So it doesn't matter if it was Biden saying these words. Obviously, this was a quote from his plagiarized over and over State of the Union address, but it doesn't matter if it's coming from Biden or if it's coming from Trump. We have the data now. We understand we didn't know what was going on the first few months of this pandemic, but like you said, Brooke, this is not the regular procedure for a new vaccine to be released. This was absolutely an emergency authorization that was given for an emergency that was actually, now that we know, was actually the plan all along. You know, and we've seen enough data where I 100% don't believe that this was actually manufactured in the few months that Trump says that it was manufactured. I think it was manufactured prior. I think it was planned. I think they were waiting for the proper time to release this. We've seen enough evidence in multiple emails regarding gain of function, emails that were directly involving Fauci, that were directly involved with multiple labs, not even overseas, but we had labs on US soil that were also manufacturing and working on this gain of function research. So there's enough data to show that this didn't just come out of nowhere. This absolutely wasn't from nature. This was an absolute leak from a lab that obviously we can't say 1,000% that it was purposely leaked, although we
can.
We have enough to say that.
And we can say that our DOD and our CIA knew about it.
Was.
We funded it, folks. We funded it.
Yes. Your taxpayer money hard at work.
But we have enough data. You know, when vaccines are released, vaccines need 5 to 10 years to actually have enough clinical trials to ensure their safety. But the thing with vaccines too, they still can't, even with enough time, even after 20 years of trials,
it's still an experiment.
They have laws protecting, and it's the only industry that has this protection, is the only industry that's protected from any liability, from any adverse reactions, any oh my god, why am I spacing out on the word? But they're protected from liability, so no one can sue them. And this started because they were having so many lawsuits filed against them because of the damages that all of these vaccines were causing. And they weren't turning a profit. They were actually coming out negative. So now that they have this protection, they're free to make as many vaccines as they like. They're adding multiple vaccines to the schedule for children in school. If you look at the difference between the 80s and 2020, I mean, the numbers, tripled now? It started with, I think, maybe 8 or 9 vaccines from the 80s, and now we're up to 30-something. And it's not a coincidence that we have seen just a drastic spike in ADHD and autism and all of these
and now turbo cancer. I mean, with the mod RNA, it's not a vaccine. So mod RNA tech is not vaccine. I mean, again, Mandy can jump in and say a lot more on that. But one thing that people like to yell at me when again, these are like the Q people who are like, there's a plan and the white hats are doing things. Okay, all right. I hope so. I mean, I'll pray on that. But in the meantime, God sent me here to speak the truth. Okay. So one thing that people keep bringing up is with this Operation Warp Speed, where he pushed it, and this is what Trump's alluding to as well in what he's saying. if this didn't happen as quick as it did, then we would have been locked down for years. Are you kidding me? We were filing lawsuits to open up churches. We did that with Joey Gilbert. We were filing lawsuits in Ohio with Tom Renz. Do you really think that we, the people, would have sat in our houses for years and years and years and years until they put out this vaccine? Are you freaking kidding me? I didn't want this vaccine anyway. Operation Warp Speed didn't even work on me. So don't give me this BS that I would have been. Trust me, I didn't sit in my house for more than like 6 days. Okay. I wasn't scared for like 2 hours, and I have guns, and I was not listening to anyone. And I sat in my gas guzzling car and drove it around town just to piss everyone off. You know what I mean? Like
I went on vacation.
That wouldn't have happened. Okay. So don't tell me that Trump saved me from a decade long lockdown. Like, that is just complete BS. I can't with that argument.
Mandy, come on, girl, coming in hot. I know
Mandy's gonna come in and say,
she's like, okay, I'm gonna dish this out. I'm gonna make it rain. Let's hear it. You've done a lot of research. Tell us all the things, and then we can each share our story of.
Yeah, I mean, one thing is like the backstory with vaccines is like, we're not all anti-vaxxers, and we weren't always anti-vaxxers. Mandy has a background in the military where they jabbed her with everything. I wasn't an anti-vaxxer. My kids got the vaccines all the way up until just now. So again, I want to share kind of the fact that we haven't been anti-vaxxers. I wish I was like Dr. Tenpenny. Sherry Tenpenny is a good friend of mine now. And every time I see her, she pulls me aside, we pray together, we hug, and she goes, Andrea, don't let these assholes walk the streets that are poisoning your kids. And she's right. She's right. We got to call these people out. So I wish I was awake before I had my kids and I didn't jab them. Unfortunately, I did. They got everything up until, 4 years ago. So anyway, I just want to say that we're not all anti-vaxxers, and we weren't all anti-vaxxers before either. This is a new brave world, right? Anyway, take it away, Mandy.
Going back to what you said, though, this isn't a regular vaccine.
No.
They keep calling this a vaccine. It's not a vaccine. It's a completely different therapy and treatment. It's a gene therapy. It says it right in the documents. This is not the same level of treatment that we have been used to all of our lives. This is not a flu shot. And if you look at all of the documents and you see exactly what it's capable of, you can see very, very quickly that we are looking at a medical treatment that is absolutely experimental. It's never been used before. It was only spoken about in theory. This is the first time that it's actually being used in practice, and it's an experiment. And every single, we can't even say American, people around the world.
But you being part of an experiment as an adult is one thing. You putting it into your 6-month-old, or people putting it into pregnant women. When they started injecting it into pregnant women, I was shocked, because pregnant women aren't even supposed to take Tylenol half the time, right? Or is that the only thing they can take? I mean, we're really careful when it comes to pregnant women and babies. But with this, we were like, oh, and then again, we can look at research from Dr. Jane Ruby's one of my favorites, but she does great deep dive research. She talks about the fact that you look at the vaccines and, okay, we can see what's in it. Poison, the original round of mod RNA tech. Now the boosters, it's like a free for all. They're like, we're going to take the 10 times, or, we're going to take this and we're going to make it 100 times. And then we're going to give it to 6-month-olds. You are part of an experiment, and people who will let their 6-month-olds or their pregnant wives do it, and then their kids, it's a totally different level. It was different when it started and people were, I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to take it because I got to take care of my family. I'll take it for my family. Now it's gotten to this really disgusting level where they're giving it to kids. In North Carolina, I was part of some lawsuits where they were giving it to kids at the high school without the parents' knowledge, because as long as they seemed old enough, that was kind of the law, was like sketchy. It's like, as long as they seem like they're old enough to make a decision, they can make the decision of getting. So kids were coming home going, Mom, I got a free pizza and a jab today at school. I would be literally in prison right now, because I would have gone to school freaking out and probably assaulting people.
Is allergic to something, and what if that shot was fatal because they were purposely not getting the consent from the parents.
They don't care. I mean, the VAERS system only shows what 1% or less than 1%, Mandy. They
And
don't
that
care.
is
People
frightening.
are dying immediately after getting the jab, and we have video of it, and they don't care.
Mandy,
They don't
give us
care.
the breakdown.
Well, there's a lot of information. What was happening initially is that the death numbers, people who were dying from the vaccine, or excuse me, the gene therapy product masquerading as a vaccine, it's a biological weapon, a slow-acting genetic poison. But the people, how they were lying with statistics, because what they were doing is that anybody that died within 2 weeks of getting the jab, those deaths were not counted as vaccinated deaths, because in order to be fully vaccinated, there had to be a 2-week period that your body had time to adjust to the injection and everything. So if you go get injected and died 5 minutes later, you were not counted as a death, because you were not considered vaccinated yet, because you hadn't had it in your body for 2 weeks. Wow. So there's a lot of lying and manipulating the numbers that was happening. I love Trump. I hope to meet him and shake his hand one day. But I do not agree with his stance on Operation Warp Speed. I'm trying not to judge too hard, because I don't know what information he had that led him to make the decision that he did. As somebody who was in the military, so I feel like I got my hair in my mouth. As somebody who was in the military and ultimately who worked for NASA, I do understand that sometimes information made available to the public is not the whole story. So I'm reticent to judge him based on facts that I don't have. However, he seems to have a bit of like an arrogance about Operation Warp Speed. Like, he's real proud of it. And
Deborah Birx came out and said, my job was to lie to him. Like, she literally came out and said, my job was to lie to Trump. And then we all know how we all feel about Fauci. Like, at the end of the day, what I've said for months now is, why can't Trump come out and say Fauci's a piece of shit? Deborah Birx was lying to me. I know that. I won't let those type of fools back into the circle, and I'll do better next time. I messed up listening to bad advisors, at least. Is there something wrong with saying that?
Maybe,
I mean,
maybe they're like, maybe it's this, like, Mandy, I want her to finish this, because I think she's got so much like knowledge and data, but maybe it's like a protection thing, that if he comes out and says this now because he's going to go into office, and maybe he's trying to mitigate the amount of potential lawsuits or legal action, because I think we're going to see this, and I said this to Joey a year ago. I said, what we're going to see in 10 years? Billboards. Did you get the COVID vaccine? Class action. So maybe I have to think that maybe it's part of a power play, but I love that Amanda gave the insight, because I was not even thinking about maybe his privy to some documents that are different for him, obviously, because he's a commander in chief, and now he's.
But I mean, we need to be thinking about an election and voters right now. I mean,
I don't know. It's weird, but Mandy, keep going. Keep telling me.
I was gonna say at first, like, I hope that people realize that Donald Trump, for all the good things that he does and the good things that he probably will do, if you are putting your faith in Donald Trump to be perfect and never make a mistake, then you don't understand what we're up against. This is a battle of good and evil. And 100%, and maybe this is why I don't agree with him, but I'm not devastated by his comments, because in the back of my mind, I have set the expectation that every man is going to let me down, that man is going to disappoint me in some way or another, and that the only person that's going to pull us out of this is God. God is not going to share the glory with Donald Trump for saving this country. When we go through whatever we're going to go through, God is the only one that's going to get credit for the save. Just like at the Red Sea, nobody else but God did that. And whatever we're going to go through is going to be so severe that he's not going to share glory with Donald Trump. And that means at some point more than likely Donald Trump is going to disappoint us or let us down in some way. And so if you're putting your eggs in Donald Trump's basket, that's fine because he's the best choice. But realize at the end of the day, he's still a man. And God,
why should we be scared to call him out when he says something stupid? Like you're saying, he's a man. If he says something dumb, call him out for it. I mean, I think that's what I'm upset about in our party.
I don't like that he's ignoring the vaccine problems. Like when he sends out his emails, when his team sends out the emails, like, what's your most important issue? Conveniently, the vaccine is never on that list. It's always border issues. It's completely ignored when it's one of the most glaring issues. And I do find that to be dishonest by whoever's running that team. Again,
at least 25% of the population.
But his stance on this Operation Warp Speed and praising the vaccine the way he does, he's going to lose a significant portion of his support to RFK on that alone. Biden is not going to be losing people to RFK as much as Trump will, because Trump's base that does not agree with him on these poison shots, they might abandon him.
And I brought this up to some people real close to Trump a couple months ago. And they scoffed at me. That was what scared me the most, is these are people close in a circle. And they said, oh, Andrea, I mean, really? Bobby, really? You think? I'm like, listen, they steal elections anyway. You don't think that this is a nice little storyline, a nice little curveball where they can say, oh, well, there was enough that went to Bobby to make this possible. Listen, do not discredit the fact that this is a huge section of our voting block. This is a make or break topic for them. This is it. I mean, we can talk about abortion and we can talk about the border and we can talk about the economy till we're blue in the face. There are at least a quarter, I think, of conservatives that are very strong and staunch on this. A quarter is a lot. And when you look at the people who are vaccine injured, I mean, we've been talking about this for a week now, and the amount of emails I've received from hardcore or once hardcore Trump supporters who've said, I am vaccine injured or I lost a loved one. Right now, I'm upset because how many people know of someone who's been vaccine injured, know of someone who has cancer that seems to be suspicious, like turbo cancer? How many people? It's like a 1 out of 3 now. So everyone has been touched by what this experimental, not vaccine technology is doing to our society. We can't deny that we've been seeing young people having heart problems while they're playing football on fields. I mean, are you kidding me?
And this is why
we're all seeing it.
We like, and all of our stories are so different, right? About the vaccine specifically, as you said, opening up, it's all about being a parent, and there was a lot of trust that we had having our children vaccinated up until this point. And so there's also cases like my case where my children have not been vaccinated yet, but I'm fighting so that my children are not vaccinated with COVID. Have they been vaccinated with other things? Yes, they have. Do I regret it? There's some days. No, I don't. I feel like I did my job of the knowledge I had at that time as a mother. I always do what I feel is best with research and data for my children. We all do. We all try. We all make mistakes. And that goes back to what Mandy's talking about, right? He's a human. He's not a god. We all collectively, I think, just like Billy says, Charlie Kirk has reached out to him and so has Alex Jones. We all agree like he's falling short on this particular item. And we all have our different experiences with this. So I find it to be very fascinating. And it's just go back to some of the data, Mandy, that you have on the vaccines.
Like specifically, what do you want to know? Because you got to narrow it down. I mean, I've read thousands of studies. First of all, it's not a vaccine. Okay.
I know we shouldn't say vaccine. First of all, you're right.
It's false to call it a vaccine. It's a gene therapy product. Moderna's 2019 SEC filings admit it. The FDA's documents admit it. It's legally a gene therapy product, which has a much more stringent regulatory process. An mRNA product has never been approved before. And furthermore, let me just say, anybody saying that it's safe and effective that's patently false. That's No vaccine is safe. They got immunity from liability by convincing the president and Congress that vaccines are unavoidably unsafe, meaning even if they do everything right, it's still unsafe. There can still be adverse reactions. They know this, and they have blanket immunity from liability. And I think it's Representative Roy is introducing a bill. He's introduced a bill it's called the Liable Act, I believe, to strip the manufacturers of their liability, in this case with COVID vaccines. So that's happening. Hopefully that passes. But vaccines are not safe by the very definition. That's clear. It's been that way since 1986.
And those were their exact words, unavoidably unsafe.
Unavoidably
Wait,
unsafe.
say that again. Unavoidably safe. Is that what you said?
Unavoidably unsafe. Quote, quote.
Unavoidably unsafe.
And then, I mean, we have the Biden administration has the Project Next Gen, and then they have these, you know, they have the cancer jabs coming out. I mean,
which is another mRNA product, which is the gene therapy product, which carries the risk of delayed adverse events, malignant transformation, death, autoimmune issues. I mean, it's what they're doing. The people who sell the panic sell the pill. They're making you sick by telling you, oh, you got to take this jibby jab so you don't get this, or so your kids don't get that. They're using fear to get you to inject something, which causes the fucking problems, excuse my language, which causes the problems that they're going to sell you more pills for. So they've created the turbo cancer, and now they want to give you another product to cure the cancer that they just created.
One thing I want to bring up as we're doing our rant on vaccines is that I don't judge anyone that took the vax, and I want to talk about that. Brooke, I want you to tell your story, because people not only were scared, but their doctors, especially if they had pre-existing conditions, were telling them. I mean, when your doctor tells you you need to, COVID was scary. I mean, I can joke all day that it didn't affect me, and I just, you know, I'm driving around in my Jeep with my guns going, screw you, government. But at the same time, it was scary. It affected everyone. And a lot of people went and got the vaccine for many different reasons. I mean, my oldest son loves stand-up comedy, and he probably watches way too much of stuff that he probably shouldn't at his age. But I mean, I love that a lot of the, you know, comics that we're watching right now, these modern guys, they all talk about if they got the vaccine, and, you know, and how, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I think it was Dave Chappelle was talking about when he got the vaccine, he was talking about, I went and got Johnson & Johnson's because it was like, it wasn't as bad. You know, like they all have these jokes about which vaccine they went and got. Yeah. By no means do I want to alienate those who got the jab. I want to continue to spread the truth. I want to wrap my arms around those people. I want to say, you were lied to, and let's talk about the truth behind these jabs, and let's talk about the truth behind the boosters. Do you feel like you need another one? Do you want the government to ever make you feel that way again, where it's like you're going to lose your job if you don't get this? I mean, at the end of the day, everyone who got it, some people might not regret getting it. Some people might go, I'm going to keep getting whatever they have because it's great tech, whatever. But the government needs to give you informed consent. That's the bottom line. They didn't give you informed consent. And then you have to, without informed consent, you don't know what you're getting, and you have to know what you're getting before you can't just go through a drive-through, you know, and get a free pizza and have them just stick it in your arm.
That's what happened to me.
Like, yeah. So tell your story, Brooke. Tell your story.
Okay.
I have a different opinion of y'all that I'll share at the end about the people who took it. No offense to you, Brooke, because I love you.
No, it's okay. So COVID for me was really scary when the lockdowns happened. I had just finished grad school. I was launching business. I was going through a very public divorce. I already had a lot of major pre-existing conditions, and that also included anytime I got an upper respiratory infection, it was immediately bronchitis. It was never, I had a pneumonia a couple times. So COVID going through part of that year, starting in March, was very scary. What amplified everything and made it worse was August of that year. This was just a random thing that happened. I ended up with a volvulus bowel obstruction. And what that is literally my insides went into a knot on themselves. So here we are in the middle of COVID. They had to remove a section of my bowel. I'm in ICU. I was in the hospital for a week. By this time, the vaccines had not been out yet because this is August of 2020. And always, here's the thing we all talk about, like there's always a vision of why things happen, right? So I was collectively supposed to have my first event September of 2020. And as I was in the hospital, I got a phone call and they're like, hey, so you can still host your event, but you can only have 20 people because they have to be wearing masks and be separated. And I was like, no, I have 30 speakers. That's not going to happen. Let's move it to next year. By the way, I'm in ICU, like fighting for my life. So, you know, it's great. We'll work it out. I was put into a position with my pre-existing conditions of this is good for you. You need this. It wasn't until I got approved through my insurance carrier and I got it on my R chart, so my electronic chart that said I got approved, and had multiple conversations with multiple people that I had been working with at the time. Some were for it, some were against it. And here's what I said at the time. I said, you know, I still believe people have to make decisions for themselves. You can give them as much information as you want, but the bottom line is people have to make a decision for themselves. Bottom line. So if I had anybody that wanted to argue with me about it, I was like, you do you, boo, and I'll do me. I'm not telling you what to do. Please don't tell me what to do. I have children to think about, and I lead with that every day of my life. Everything that I do, I constantly think about. I have 2 boys. I want to live, okay? So having missing colon, pre-existing cancer, it was presented to me in the manner that you need to get this done because you're now even more high risk, right? You have all these extra things that are now coming into play. And I'm like, you're right. Because I knew I had already had pneumonia and I constantly got upper respiratory infections. And I was like, I don't want to die because I didn't do the right thing for my kids. So I did get the first 2 doses, how they did Pfizer. How originally I got notified was via my electronic chart, and it said, hey, yes, you are qualified. The government's going to pay for your vaccine. Great, check the box. My mom and I had a couple discussions about it. I had a couple discussions with family members. And again, there was a lot of, some people were on board, some weren't. And at the end of the day, I said, everybody has to make their own collective decision for themselves. And they have to live with that. And I have to live with my decision every day. So I ended up getting, they didn't tell you at the time because you couldn't tell if you wanted Johnson & Johnson. You couldn't say if you wanted Moderna or Pfizer. I got a random like date and time to go through a drive-through, but I didn't get pizza, Andrea. Like, what the hell? I got a shot, but no pizza.
Yeah, donuts, gift cards. Man, you got gypped, man.
Something out of a movie, like going to this weird drive-through. And at the time, I still felt like I was making the decision. I want to live for my kids, right? I've got all these pre-existing. I'm missing a section of colon now. All these weird things were going on. So I got the first dose, and how the Pfizer dosing worked, it was like I had to get a second one in an 8-week period, and they put it on my little card, like, come back at this time. And any other vaccine I'd gotten in the past, that was pretty normal. Like if it was a 2 or 3 dosing, they would tell you have to come in this window, because if you miss the window, you're going to miss that thing that you need. So I went back, I got the second dose. And then after I got the second dose, all this time I had never had COVID the whole time. Been exposed to multiple people who had it, tested multiple times because I'm high risk. And I ended up with COVID, and I was very sick, very, very sick. And I was home here for about 2 weeks, and then I got a little bit better, and then ended up really sick and had to go back into urgent care. And they were like, oh, we just think you have another infection. I'm like, I still have COVID. That's what's going on. Like, it's clear to me. It's the same symptoms. So I didn't have it the entire time until I got vaccinated. That tells me a lot right there. Secondarily, seeing weird random things in the news of people falling over dead, red alarm bells were going on in the back of my mind. Like, did I just make a really bad mistake for myself? Yeah. And so after I had COVID, I was like, I think it was right after I got sick, they started promoting the boosters. And I was like, no. I think I made a mistake. I was not in a position of, I was forced to get it for my job, but I was in a position of all of my medical care providers were encouraging me because exactly. So you had people that were getting forced into it by jobs. You had people that were being talked into it by
Mhm.
Doctors and healthcare, oh, it's so safe, it's this and that, and you have all this pre-existing. Who's not going to say no to that? You know,
Mhm.
and I know that there are some strong people out there that said no. I was not one of them. But after I got sick with COVID, I said, this is some BS and I'm not taking any more.
And it's good that you didn't do the boosters. And that's one thing I want to say that to people is
But
there's things out there we're finding out more. One of the reasons why I push on this is not because I think it's a slam shut door. It's because I want to continue the research. I want to continue getting more truth out there. When Toby Keith died and we did a lot of research on if his cancer and what was going on could have at all been related to him getting the vaccine, and when other people, celebrities have, Jamie Foxx and everyone have fallen down, and we're like, oh, is this because of vaccine? I get so much criticism. People say you're insensitive and you're evil to bring it up. Here's the thing is I want the research. Like, I literally want the research. If I got the vaccine and I started having strange symptoms, I would want science to come and to find out what's going on. Same with these deaths. I want to know the truth, because we could find answers to these problems. We could save lives. Why is it mean to say I want autopsies on people who are getting weird blood clots and myocarditis and 13-year-old hockey players and things like that? Like, this is not me being insensitive. This is me saying, let's find the truth of what's going on.
And the final part of like what happened with me is that then my ex-husband and I share 50-50 with the kids. Now, my ex had gotten vaccinated. Prior to getting vaccinated, he got COVID. I think he had it once. I don't know if he had gotten it twice. And then I don't know what he received, but he had gotten vaccinated. I got vaccinated. But we had a very clear discussion. And I said to him, we were like 3 years in at this point, right? And I said, hey, just want to check in. We're in agreement not to vax the kids with COVID, right? And he said, yes, I am. Little did I know, like the very next week after our divorce decree was signed, that I got slammed with all these motions. And one of them included the vaccine for COVID. But I'm not the only one that experienced this around the country. So I want to share this because I know other parents have gone through this, or they might be going through it. And I want to give them the solution of what they need to do. Because my case was the first that went to the Supreme Court in the state of Nevada. No other COVID vaccine cases against two parents saying yes and no have gone to Supreme Courts in other states that I'm aware of. Nothing has gone at the national Supreme Court level. So we went to court, and the lower courts affirmed my ex-husband and said, sure, you can vaccinate the children on a medical recommendation. And I was like, no, I have healthy boys. Then it went to the Supreme Court, which took about a year for them to come out with a ruling. And the Nevada Supreme Court, then now we have this awful case law, as Andrea is putting in our comments, of that if you're in a 50-50 situation, I lost. And it says they're going to favor, you can use this as case law to favor the parent who is for the vaccine based on a medical recommendation. The only way to get out of that, they don't care about your religious beliefs. They don't care if you throw a bunch of data and science at them. They don't care about any of that. The only way to get out of it with your children or for yourself is a medical exemption. End of story. A judge and a doctor can't go toe-to-toe with their licensing. A judge isn't going to go over a doctor's head when a doctor says this person cannot be vaccinated because they have pre-existing. This person can't be vaccinated because they're 15 years old. So we're working on legislation. We're going to get that out there. But just know, if you're a parent in a 50-50 situation and the other person wants to vaccinate your children with COVID, it will be affirmed unless you have a medical exemption. And that's the other part of my story, is that my children, I'm fighting for my children. Like I said earlier, I make my decisions every day for my children. Everything I do is for my kids. And making the decision to not have them COVID vaccinated. And so anybody can come talk to me, because I got the double dose of Pfizer. Come talk to me about it. Ask me what my experience is. But I will do everything I can to protect my kids. And when they are 18, and I tell everybody this, they can make decisions on their own. I hope my children will come to me for things. I feel really special. I had a special moment with my oldest son this week. He came to me with some stuff that was going on. And he typically comes to me, but this was like some bigger stuff that I'll text you guys all later. You're going to be like, oh my gosh. You got to have that trust with your children. And at the end of the day, I feel like I still did right by them, even if I lost the Nevada Supreme Court. If it means that I'm a rock star and I create legislation for other parents, so be it. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the world we're living in. I mean, I think we want to fight this. We've been rallying around Brooke's case because not only is that horrible for our state that that's now a precedent, but there's things that we can do though. Like she's saying, we're going to keep shining light on this and exposing it because before you get a divorce, while you're getting a divorce, things like that, talk to your attorneys, make sure that there's some things written in there to protect you from this.
Yes.
And that's one thing that I would like to do
In
is
the divorce
just the
decree?
education on this.
Yep.
Divorce decree, simple verbiage in there that we agree that on these terms. But it is pretty scary. We have a lot of people that reach out to Tom Renz, Joey Gilbert, a lot of the corruption attorneys on these cases where one parent wants the kids to get the vaccine and the other parent doesn't. And then, who wins in that?
The only person that's going to win is the parent that produces a medical exemption. That is the only person that will win. If you come in there with a letter and one pediatrician says no and one says yes, the courts are going to affirm. And if you look at the data, you can Google search. There's been cases all over in different states.
Mm-hmm.
None of them, again, have made it to the Supreme Court like mine has.
I would love to see the pediatricians that are pushing it lose their licenses and go to jail. That's how upset I am, because how do you push something that's an experiment? There's no one in this world that can tell me that these things are safe and effective and that they're not an experiment. At very base, you can say it's an experiment. Yeah, it's an experiment. We're trying it out. We're going to see what happens. That is not going to touch my kids. Okay. No one can say it's better than that. And beyond that, like Mandy was saying, we have the evidence to show that this is killing people, and it's a poison. There's poison in it. And so when the pediatricians in these cases come out and are the ones that say, oh yeah, no, I think that they need to get it. Like, and then that's in the case, I hope we can go back soon, and I want them to lose their licenses, and I'd love to see their asses in jail, because when you're a doctor, what's your oath? To do no harm. How do you confidently back these vaccines when they're an experiment? No one can confidently say these things are safe and effective, especially for kids. Are you kidding me?
Money kickback. That's how you confidently go in there. And Mandy knows about this. Mandy, do you recall roughly less than a year ago when I was doing some Substacks for Joey, and one of the things that came up was the kickbacks that the doctors were getting on how to talk to patients about the vaccine and how to answer questions and how to be personable and how to basically sell it, and you got a bonus as a doctor. There you go. Mic drop. Boop.
I think that's what's the most frightening thing about all of this. I mean, it goes full circle back to what we were talking about in the beginning, how this is probably one of the most detrimental policies that we all need to be discussing for the election, right? Because immigration is affecting everyone, the economy is affecting everyone, but the vaccine mandate affected everybody, regardless of what state you lived in. And it's shocking and surprising to me that more people aren't ready to go ballistic with rage because of what the consequences of all of this. If you look at everything, science is no longer science anymore. Science is bought and paid for. Science is now a business, and that business goes to the highest bidder. And if you look at all of the studies, all of the universities that conduct all of these studies, it's the companies themselves paying for these studies to be able to manipulate the results that they want, so that way they can sell their product at a higher rate. This is all manipulated and strategically manipulated for their profit. And if you look at the last 2-3 years from when this vaccine was released, this was the largest wealth transfer in history. We have, I think it's 9 new billionaires since this vaccine came out. And if you look at all of this, right, a lot of these companies, I mean, we can talk about AstraZeneca, because right now they're trying to get additional funding in Europe and the UK to build more manufacturing buildings to to be able to produce more of these vaccines as flu shots, right? So that way it's more of a normalized
Mm-hmm.
shot.
Yeah, they're putting it in our flu shots. They're already
Yeah,
putting it in our flu
so
shots. Yeah.
they're claiming, right? Their claim is, well, we're investing into this. We're putting up our own money. But the thing is, this happened everywhere. This happened in America. It was taxpayer dollars who were
Mhm.
paying for these studies, who paid for the manufacturing of this, and then the companies took 100% of the profits. So
Mhm.
we paid for this research with our own tax dollars. They kept the profits.
The
And
research
then
is all BS, and then
all of the research is BS, but now there's excess deaths that they're strategically trying to hide. In 1 year alone, it was 100,000 excess deaths, and they're manipulating. They are going in right now. They're claiming, oh yeah, we actually had to change how we analyze the data, and of course, strategically, we're going from 100,000 and dropping dramatically to a much lower excess number. I mean, that's very, very convenient that you're now changing how you're analyzing deaths when
Well, they just came out and said COVID's the flu. They said COVID's the flu, and no kid with zero pre-existing conditions died from COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Zero. Okay? And now they're saying it's the flu, and then your independent experts. I love the independent experts that came in and did all this massive research. Now what was it, like 10 of them last week were exposed because they're on the freaking payroll. They're on the payroll. Like, get the hell out of here with this stuff. It's driving me crazy. Like, this is stuff that the freedom anti-corruption attorneys that we work with are literally fighting to keep their licenses every day. They have to be super careful with what they say and what they file and how they go into court because we're attacked all the time. But you literally had how many of these guys? We have Deborah Burks coming out and saying, I was paid to lie. And then you've got these 10 independent experts that have been like, I was paid to lie. At what point do we pull the rug out and drain the swamp? Like, again, this is why I want Trump to come in and I want Flynn to be by his side and I want to get rid of all the alphabet agencies and I want to drain the swamp. But we have to all get on the same page about how we've been lied to and manipulated about these vaccines, because this is symbolic of everything. They're manipulating us at every turn.
Okay, you ready for some icing on the cake?
I feel like if you're coming out against us for exposing this, I feel like there's only two camps that you could be sitting in. You're either one of those people that's making millions, hundreds of thousands, millions, possibly billions, for endorsing this poison, right? Or you're just sitting in the other half that's just terrified to know the truth because you've already taken this and you're living in fear, and now you don't want to know the truth because you don't want to be another statistic. And to me, that one, living in fear is probably the stupidest thing that you could possibly do. And I don't want anyone's feelings hurt, obviously, but like right now is the time to be an adult, especially if you have kids. Now is not the time to be living in fear. If you see that this was the largest wealth transfer, and you see what they're doing, and you see that people are dying, you see that people are getting cancer, there's cancer spikes, there's all kinds of spikes, there's myocarditis, there's heart problems, all of these things are happening that just strangely a coincidence the last 2-3 years. And if you're still living in your house saying, well, I think it's all just conspiracy theory and I don't want to think about that because the government is really out, to help me. If you are sitting in that fear because you don't want to know if you're going to be next to just die suddenly, you need to wake up, because the problem is they're going to do it again. You will fall for it again for being this gullible little sheep, and you're going to get your family involved, you're going to get your kids involved, and it's going to be much, much worse the next time. And we need to stop living in a world of cowards. You need to stand up. If anyone that is not furious and raging at this point with the data that we have, you are purposely ignorant because you're a coward, or you are getting paid to endorse this, because there is no other option at this point. There's nothing else. You have no other excuse to defend it.
So there's Trump.
Let me ask all three of you this, because you may or may not know this, but why? Okay, because I know people that have done this, and it was I don't want to relinquish the identity of several people that this has happened to. Why would FEMA be paying people for death certificates that had COVID-19 on them.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Mm-hmm.
What is FEMA's job, and why would they be reimbursing people who had died? Because it's all, if you look at a bigger picture, right? Part of it's
They all got paid. I mean,
yeah, they all got paid. So they're
we saw people die from a freaking
like,
motorcycle accident, and then they classified it as COVID. I mean, it's just, the sad thing is,
no, I'm not talking about the hospital.
No, I know. Yeah.
Okay, I'm talking about families that have, if it's on the person's death
Mhm.
certificate,
Mhm.
they can file a claim with FEMA for all the funeral expenses. There's like a cap amount, but they can do it. And if COVID-19 is listed on there, FEMA will reimburse you. Now, that is good, obviously, for some families, because an unexpected family member died and they're like, oh my gosh, and they're having to come out all these expenses. But if you look at a bigger picture of population control,
they're trying to classify everything as COVID.
I know,
they
but
wanted everything to be classified as COVID.
$1,000 on the dollar for a body count versus someone living.
Yeah.
If that was the case and FEMA was really trying to help out families, one, I'm still waiting for Maui to get some help. But
yeah,
two,
amen.
two, if FEMA and the government were actually trying to help people, why is it only deaths from COVID that are getting these payouts? Why are we getting payouts for families that are suffering from cancer? Why are we seeing payouts for families that are suffering from other terminal illnesses? Why is it just COVID? It's very convenient because if you follow the money and you look at the track record, you see the higher rate of COVID deaths helped with the fear mongering, which helped push the vaccine, which helped make them more money. Because
and anyone that thinks that we're in the past on this, we're going to go back. In the fall, they've already said, I mean, the CDC director already came out. It's just the flu, that one. They have the game plan. Like Mandy's brought up, we have the genocide game plan.
How could you not be raging when they told
this fall they're going to do it again? Don't think that COVID's in the past. Don't just go, oh, we did it, we survived. They're going to do it again. They've talked about it. They're bringing out more vaccines to cure the turbo cancer that they created. And they're already, the CDC director and everyone's coming out going, this fall is going to be a doozy. Get ready for this one, folks.
Which I also actually want to add, and I know that you went through a lot, Brooke, and I don't say this because
I know.
I know that you went through a lot, but I just want to share this because I think it's a very, very interesting comparison. I have not received the vax. Obviously no boosters, but I've never been vaccinated with this. And again, not an anti-vaxxer. I had all of my vaccines when I was a kid. Refused to take this one. Now, I think it's very, very interesting. The summer that we were locked down, I was traveling consistently. I was on a plane every single weekend.
And you never got sick.
I was speaking at things. I was all over the place. I was probably more susceptible to getting sick because I was traveling so much. And I only got sick one time during that year. The only reason that I even realized that I had COVID this one time was because I happened to come home. I was visiting family for the weekend. I think it was Father's Day or something like that. And I just happened to one day say, oh, I have kind of like a little itch in my throat, thinking it might just be the pollen. I'm flying around a lot, going from one climate to another. Didn't think anything of it. And my mom got me tested. I didn't really care to get tested. It was the only time that I was tested. I came out positive. Obviously, we know that all of these tests were coming out as false positives to push that narrative as well. But it was the only reason that I would have known if I did, in fact, have this COVID, right? But it was the only indication that I had it because I had literally no other symptoms. I had this tiny little, oh, hey, I think I might have an itch. And an hour later, I mean, it was completely gone. And since then, I mean, this was back in 2020. I have not been sick once.
Same.
Because my entire process or idea, right, was, well, if this is going around, I need to focus on building and strengthening my immune system. And this is why I was attacked so much, because I was...
That's what our children do too, by the way.
Yes.
So vaccinating kids is just beyond retarded, because the kids are actually the little germ incubators for us. Like, we want them to get it and pass it around for us. So that's how long have human beings survived?
Exactly.
You know what? You know why daycare was great for Grant when he was 5 years old? Because he was like 6 weeks to 5. He caught everything.
Yeah.
The first time he missed
The
one day.
green boogers.
Yes,
Yeah.
he caught everything.
Oh,
When he was
it's
like
awful.
he missed his
Yeah.
first day in 5th grade. Okay, continue. Sorry,
Yeah.
I had to say. I had to
Let them get sick.
Exactly. So I thought it was very interesting that I was focusing on just keeping my immune system strong. And I had conversations with my brothers and my dad about this. We made sure that we got sunlight. I was going out hiking as often as I could to make sure that I was getting fresh air, that I was getting vitamin D. My dad got me into carnivore, right? So we were eating high contents of protein. We were eating extremely clean. Making sure that we had cut out absolutely anything processed, because we were hyper focused on making sure that we had the strongest immune system possible, because obviously we didn't know what was coming. We didn't know what this was. And that was back in 2020. I have not been sick one time. We're now in 2024.
Yeah. And I've been
And
traveling more than I ever have in my life too. And I never.
My dad.
I mean, if I ever had COVID, I wouldn't know, because I'm not going to get tested for it. Are you out of your freaking minds? Like, what are you talking about? We're talking about the flu. I'm not going to downplay that COVID exists. Okay, COVID exists. I know that it was created. I know that we paid for the creation. But again, it's like a really rough flu. I'm sorry. Again, like what Frankie's saying, I live my life to make sure that I can survive a flu. Okay. I never got a flu vaccine. When I was pregnant, they were trying to push that crap on me. I was like, are you crazy? I mean, I never understood. Every time people, remember like 10 years ago when people started getting the flu vaccine, it was getting more and more popular. Maybe it was more than 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. I remember people at my work, oh, did you get your flu vaccine? I'm like, no. And then every time they got the flu vaccine, they were sick like the next week. I'm like, y'all a bunch of freaking retards.
You know
like
what I used to say? I'm like, you mean my
like you just got the flu vaccine and now you got the flu. Like, what the hell? I'd rather just get the flu and just survive it.
That's what's
Who
so
in the room's been vaccinated?
Because
Just me?
I was gonna say it's so clear that the health industry actually doesn't care about your health, right? Because if you are sick, or if it's flu season, there are never conversations about what has your lifestyle been. What have you been eating?
No.
What's in your diet? Are you going outside? Do you have
Are you eating sugar?
lifestyle?
Are you exercising?
Everything is, here's a pill, here's a shot, because they're making money off of it. That's how pharmaceuticals work. That's how the health industry works.
And what Billy just said, where'd the flu go?
Sick care industry that we have.
Yeah. Billy just said in the chat, where'd the flu go? That was one of my favorite things. And this happened back in, I think, 2021. All of a sudden, there was no flu. Oh man.
Where do you have family or friends that were vaccinated with COVID? Like just COVID? I know that you've got a lot of vaccines that you had because you were in NASA. Did you suffer any injuries from those vaccines?
I believe that I did. Yeah, I got that crap anthrax vaccine in the late 90s.
That's right.
I can't prove it, but I mean.
So what about COVID? Were you weren't vaccinated with COVID, right?
I've never even taken a test.
I'm the only one in the group that got the vaccine. Well, I don't have boosters. Let me be very clear. I got the double dose that was required at first, which seemed, let me say it this way. It was painted very normally to get a double dose or like a one dose. That's a normal, if you get a vaccine for tetanus and they go, oh, you come in for your one shot. That's a normal, I was in healthcare for 20 years. That's a very normal thing. So when they broke it into the two, I was like, yeah, that's normal. What set off more alarm bells for me was when I got sick. And then when they were like, oh, you need this booster, that
4,
booster,
5, 6, 7. Aren't we on 9?
Who has cancer?
Yeah.
He has esophageal cancer, and they removed part of his esophagus last year. And I kept saying to him, please don't get any more like vaccines or shots. And he was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I'm like, I know, but I'm asking. I'm like, please, please, please. And then finally the conversation came up again one day. And I was like, hey, you haven't gotten any more vaccines, right? And he goes, so they told me I couldn't get them. And I said, what do you mean they told you couldn't get them? And he goes, because I'm too sick with cancer now. And I said, do you hear what just came out of your mouth? If that vaccine was safe for you, flu driven, whatever, manufactured, lab created illness, why would they tell you that it's not safe for you when you have like a turbo cancer? And by the way, the cancer that he has does not run in his family. all of a sudden, like I forget, he's like one of like 8 or 9 kids or whatever. None of them had cancer. And all of a sudden, now I don't know if the other people that got sick with cancer had COVID vaccines, but I find it very interesting that he is one of the ones, and he had like this random cancer that is typically a cancer that is genetically passed down from your mother or your father, and like they both didn't have it, and his mom had died a year prior and he's in his 70s, and they said don't get any more boosters. That to me is red flag.
They put in the research that they're going to shed. They also put in the research that they're probably going to cause cancer. So anyone who's saying that turbo cancer is not coming from these vaccines, again, they can read the freaking research documents that Mandy and I can share. But they actually studied. They said shedding was not brought up from a conspiracy theorist brain. It was actually brought up by them in their documents back in like 2006. They've been studying this stuff, and this stuff has been around for a long, long, long time. And they said a long, long, long time ago, long before 2020, that these things most likely cause cancer.
Isn't that terrible to hear that? And then it makes me have a lot of guilt for what I did, but at the same time, I go back to...
You shouldn't feel guilt.
No, I don't. Yeah. Okay, so here, we're having this conversation about Trump making a bad public comment, right? Like he's making it, we all agree that like, we're like, hey, we don't agree with that. I'm not super, I mean, there's days that I'm mad at myself and there's days that I'm not. At the end of the day, I'll do everything in my power to protect my kids. And I know that I've done that with the legal fight. I know that I've done that because they still are not vaccinated to this day with COVID. But I still feel that I instinctively made a mistake for myself. I made a wrong. I'm human. I did something based on the knowledge and the information that I had at that time that I felt I was making the best choice for myself at that particular time, that I was like, hey, I didn't choose it to get sick. I chose it to live for my children.
But was your decision rooted in fear though, Brooke?
Yes. I had
the spirit of fear is not from God, and fear. I'm not, listen, I love you. You're right. I love you to death, and I am not in any way trying to, make you feel bad or anything. I'm just, I've never been the kind of friend to not be honest in the way that I see things.
Yeah.
And it's really, really important that people acknowledge if in fact that they were making decisions based on fear. The spirit of fear is not from God. So if somebody is scaring you to the point, because listen, people really have to understand this, because they're going to do it again. And the next one that they're going to do is going to cause more damage, because immune systems, billions of immune systems have been disabled and fucked with. Excuse my language. Again, sorry, Leslie. I love you, but I cuss. So what?
Sorry, Leslie.
Sorry, Leslie, love you, but anyway, people have to own the fact that they were not forced. Save for the old people and the kids that had that stuff put into their arms, people were not forced. You may have been mandated, you may have been coerced, you may have been bullied, you may have been threatened, but you were not forced. You were given a choice, and you chose to act out of fear, or you chose to save a job, or you chose to travel, or some people got their own hearts used against them. They're such good
safe
people.
And effective. Telling people they're safe and effective. People
you're going to kill your grandma if you don't get it.
Oh,
you were emotionally manipulated, but it's very, very critical that people understand you were not forced. You were forced to inform yourself, ask questions, and then make a choice. You know damn well if you got informed consent or not. Okay, just because your doctor told you to take it, that's not informed consent. They didn't have any more information. So it's really, really important that people have an honest look at their choices, because it's going to happen again. There are people who lost everything when they were forced with the choice. Oh, you're going to lose your job. You're going to get kicked out of the military. You're 2 months from retirement.
I lost my job. I lost everything.
Yeah, I know people who lost 20-year Air Force careers because they said, no jab, no job sounds a lot like no mark, no buy. We don't know anything about this. You're trying to gaslight me, scare me, manipulate me, bribe me, all to take this. None of this is good. If this was good for me, why are you doing it like this? And again, I know so many people who took it. I tried to warn them. I have people in my family that don't have cancer in their family history that now are dying of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
My brother-in-law had a stroke. He still will not allow in his mind that his choice many times over could have contributed to it.
Mm-hmm.
Over and over. They've got Epstein-Barr, Guillain-Barré, strokes, over and over. They're not acknowledging that perhaps it was a mistake. And until that happens, until people have some really honest conversations with themselves, they're really at risk of being victimized and forced
Again. Yeah.
again. Yeah. So
no more boosters. Don't take any more. And then again, Dr. Sherry Tenpenny and a lot of these brilliant researchers out there, Dr. Ryan Cole and Peter McCullough and all these guys out there doing this research and being at the forefront of this. Dr. Sherry Tenpenny at the very beginning, and this like haunts me when I think about it, she kept saying 3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years, yeah.
That's where we're at right now. And we just started. So I keep telling people, hold on to your seats because we're seeing turbo cancer. The reason why Tom Renz this week went on a tirade on his show yelling about this issue right now that we're talking about is because his wife has cancer. Mm-hmm. The type of cancer we're talking about seems a lot like turbo cancer that she probably got from shedding from the school she worked at when all the kids got jabbed up.
Yep.
When he was just this last week, because she was in the hospital after getting her chemo treatment, she got sick and she had to go to the hospital, and thank God she's home, and please prayers to Annie Renz. But we want her to be healthy and healed from this because it's been hard. But when he was leaving the hospital with his wife, he was just totally shaken by how many young turbo cancer patients were in the cancer wing. This is happening right before our eyes. You can't deny it. I mean, there's too many people out there that say I was vaccinated. And now Mandy's talking about those that even have the denial of it. Mm-hmm. If you look at mortality and you look at signals and statistics, all you have to do is read. You don't have to be a scientist. You don't have to have a PhD. All you have to do is be able to read. Look up what's going on. Everyone, I feel like, has been affected negatively by the rollout of these vaccines. So when you think of someone like Trump running for office and coming out and going, rah, 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 I did a great thing rolling them out. Meanwhile, everyone in the real world is sitting there going, I know about 5 people. Everyone I know that took the vax regrets it to some degree.
Yeah.
Okay.
The cognitive
like Brooke, she's not going to get the booster.
Some of them
her
are
kids aren't going to get it.
Refused to make the connection.
There's not a whole lot of people out there going, boosters. And those people are, I mean, my point is, this is a huge issue going into this election. Bobby has a solid ground on it, and anyone going into any public office, especially what's going on with Trump, needs to wrap their brain around what this means to real American people, the blue collar, the real people, the Americans. We lived through this. We're still pretty pissed, and we're seeing people die. And we're seeing it in our lives. So you can't lie to us anymore. And 3 to 5 years, we're at the beginning of it, folks. So see where we're going to be in a year and another year. And see what's already happened to reproduction rates.
All those compromised immune systems, they're going to be devastated. And then they're going to, this is hypothetical. Obviously, I'm not making a statement of fact. This is just what I see logically happening. Billions of disabled immune systems, compromised immune systems, exposed to whatever pathogen, however benign it may normally otherwise be. People with HIV die from the flu, okay? So we have billions of compromised immune systems. They let out whatever the next thing is, and then people start dropping for real, not because disease X is so bad, but because they're coming from a state of immune compromised system. And so then that's just going to inflate the death count. Mm-hmm. And then the death count goes high, and then here comes more tyranny. They go, oh, we had kids dying and this, that, and the, like it's just going to spiral. People have to not react from a place of fear and do their research. They really do.
Well, and again, this is obviously what I'm trying to say is it affects everyone. It affects everyday Americans. This isn't just affecting certain classes and certain races and certain this, that, and the other thing. We all lived through COVID. We all were either forced or tried to be forced into taking this vaccine. We all were lied to. And we all know. It's kind of like one of these where it's like, I know. So Trump needs to pull his head out of his ass. That's all I wanted to say tonight. I'm glad I said it. We should say our parting words before next week. Anything you guys want to end with? If you want to get off the subject at all and say something more uplifting. I don't think that everyone's going to die from this. I just don't want anyone else getting more boosters. And I want everyone to, like you said, Mandy, don't live in fear. And let's raise our power of discernment going forward, because our kids and the future generations deserve to live in a society that never does that again. You cannot treat us like lab rats, and you cannot forcibly jab us, and you cannot not give us informed consent. That's Nuremberg. It's insanity. All right. Parting words, girls.
I would say the fight is not over. The conversation I had with Joey when the affirmation, they keep using the word affirm. I hate that they use this word, but the affirmation that the Supreme Court had released, I rebuke it, and I will lay over my children and I will be arrested before they get a COVID vaccine. And I told Joey, are you prepared to bail me out of jail for the fight of my kids? And he was like, I got your back. So
yeah, we all
that's where I'm at. I've
you.
never gotten a booster. I'm not getting a booster. Whatever's coming next, I'm not getting it. I'm going through some health struggles right now that we think are related to the colon removal part, but we're not absolutely sure. It could be. It could potentially be because I got 2 Pfizer. We don't know, right? Like, it's an unknown. So I would say if you made a decision based on what you had to do at that time, it's okay. Like, we all make mistakes. We're human. That's what we pray about. That's what we ask for forgiveness about, because we are just human people. But if you have information now going forward, now you can make the right
spread the truth. Yeah.
And
tell your story.
Mm-hmm. Like Mandy said, the whole fear factor is that I was filled with a lot of fear. I had more fear about getting COVID than I did about when I literally saw right before my eyes, within like a 2-second time frame, of hitting a guardrail on a bridge and thinking, okay, the car's going to go over. My reaction after I hit was like, where did I land? And I was like trying to get the airbag down because I needed to know where I was at. I had less fear of getting into a major motor vehicle accident that I've never been in my life than when I got the vaccine. That's what I'm leaving with.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they scared the crap out of you. Mm-hmm. All right, Frankie, Mandy, what do you want to say to the good people who listen to us?
Thank you, Billy.
Tonight. Yeah, Billy's here.
I just want to say, prepare yourself, because absolutely this is not over. I feel like we're just at the cusp of this thing. They have had the opportunity to make billions. They will continue to adapt to make more billions for themselves, because the only thing of concern for them is their pockets and not the health of America. Like Mandy stated, we have billions now with a fearfully compromised immune system now at this point. And I think whether you received this vax or not, doesn't matter at this point. But I want you to understand, whether you have had this vaccine or not, it is your choice what you choose to do today and tomorrow. It is your choice to decide, how do I protect myself? How do I learn what rights I have? How do I make sure that I have all the correct research to protect my immunity, my health, my children, my family, my future? Because it is absolutely up to you. The data is out there. There's a reason why I haven't been sick in 3 years. Like, I love researching and biohacking anything on health. If you have questions, feel free to DM me. But this is absolutely up to you. You can actually reverse a lot of the issues that you have by your diet alone. So you can heal yourself. One, if you have the faith in God that God can heal you, and you allow yourself to walk through the doors that He opens for you, you can absolutely heal yourself. But you have to do the work. You have to understand that sitting there and just doing nothing is going to do nothing. You need to have the faith. You need to have courage. You need to protect yourself. Because having all of this knowledge means nothing if you're not applying it. But you have to protect yourself. This is only the beginning. It's only going to get worse. They want you sick for a reason, because they make money off of it. They want you poor because they make more money off of you. And they want you stupid because then they can control you. So if that's what they want, you need to be as healthy as possible, you need to be as knowledgeable as possible, and you need to try to make as much wealth as you possibly can, because that's the only way and the best way to rebel against this corruption. But again, this is up to you.
Amen. Mandy, you hit it on. I mean, what I loved about what Mandy said, she doesn't have to say another word. I love that look on her face right now. So I'm just going to wrap it up for her. The courage. Don't live in fear. Fear comes from the devil. If we follow God, and again, if we have to have that discernment. There is someone in the chat trying to get me worked up about the research on what Trump said and don't follow MSM and all this stuff. So again, at the end of the day, what I'm talking about with the Trump, the truth that he put out there, I'm sick of the 5D chessboard. Okay, we're going into election season. He needs to speak real, and he needs to speak real to the people. I don't want to have to decipher a freaking decoder ring, a 5D chessboard. I'm not going to play that game. Speak to the people real. Or stop. Like the stuff on the, again, someone saying, oh, we did the vaccine so that, no, we wouldn't have been locked down for years. Operation Warp Speed was a bad idea. Anyone who wants to try to tell me that it was a good idea and that there was some sort of, Q conspiracy with the white hats and they did it because if Hillary won, we would have all been dead by now. Okay. I'll talk to you on the private chat. I'm going to put like my cell phone number out there. I'd love to sit and talk to these people. But it's too little too late at this point. We're going to election season. We need our elected officials. This is one of those things, like when we had our abortion show the last time, we talked about that for over an hour. My whole thing on that was people who are running for office have to speak confidently in this space to real Americans and speak in a way that it actually resonates, because we're your constituents. We're electing you for a reason. So you can't be scared when someone raises their hand and says, well, what, how do you feel about abortion? Trump, how do you feel about vaccines? If he literally is going to walk up into a microphone right now and do what he just did on his truth, it's going to be real bad, is all I'm saying. He needs to knock it off.
Well, he's been booed at every rally when he did.
If you're booed every time you go,
every time,
Operation, you might want to sit back and go, I wonder what the real American people feel about this. Like, maybe I should take a pause here. Makes me wonder what the motivation is there if he's been booed. If it's so obvious, what's the motivation? I'll just leave it at that. Okay, we're going to be back next week. I love y'all. Hopefully it'll be, I don't know, Thursday. I don't know. It's if we survive. The four of us are fighters. We're in the trenches. We're going to try to get some sleep and come back next week. We love y'all. Thank you for joining us. That's What She Said, episode 5. Follow us on America Happens. Thank you, Vim Miller, americahappens.com, America Happens on Rumble. And then thank you, Tom Renz, for letting us host on his platform, Renz Media. All right. Good night, y'all. God bless. Stay strong. Be courageous. No fear.